I would now like to introduce you to Bonnie Peluso. Bonnie is Kern Health's new ACD Medicare specialist. She was recruited for her 6 years of expertise leading the creative for Kaiser Permanente's individual and group Medicare plans. She brings key insights into readability, issues, and demographic preferences to Kern Health's effective and integrated direct marketing approach to healthcare. Joining Bonnie today on the webinar is Scott Levine, Senior Vice President of Healthcare Strategy. Bonnie, you now have the floor.
Thanks so much, and hi, everyone. Scott Levine and I would like to thank you for taking time out of your crazy annual election period schedule to join today's webinar from Kern Health. As you know, it's getting to be that time of year when boomers are bombarded by Medicare marketing. And this year, the 2016 election is going to add to the clutter and confusion. Today, I'm going to give you some insights and solutions on how your communications, whether they're print, direct marketing, or internet, can better stand out from the crowd and motivate someone to take action. This is all based on research and years of marketing to the Medicare audience. My first slide combines tips 1 and 2, shoot for a younger look, and don't call them seniors. People who just turned 65 don't identify with people in their 80s. They can barely deal with the fact they're now eligible for Medicare. Every year, this audience thinks of themselves as younger, more active, healthier, and more capable. So your photography should aim for subjects that are 10 to 15 years younger. And the Medicare audience hates being categorized as seniors. It's better to connect with them as individuals and engage around their attitudes, activities, and values, not their age. Tip number 3, make your materials easy to see. As healthy and as vital as this audience is over previous generations, there's one key physical factor that affects their comprehension and enthusiasm, and that's how aging does a number on their vision. When I was researching this topic, one of the documents I found brought up an interesting observation, and it's this. Have you ever seen an older woman wearing incredibly bright makeup? The first impression may be that she's making a fashion statement. The fact is, she literally can't see how bright her makeup is. We created a couple examples here to show you how boomers see the world. What appears like a bright, vivid color to young eyes looks muted to a Medicarian. This is why pale pastels have to be used carefully for this audience. Pastels will look paler, gray, and blah to the older audience. So you need to consider how aging affects your audience's vision. So here's why boomers need bright, vibrant colors and high contrast in order to really see your materials. Not to bum you out, but as we age, our pupils get smaller, which lets in less light. That's why it gets harder to drive at night as you get older. The field of vision decreases. Retina cells for normal color and contrast decline, and that's why pale pastels look lifeless. The lenses of our eyes harden and turn yellow, which is why the target sees better in the yellow, orange, red spectrum. The next slide is a great example of how contrast can affect the readability of materials. We did a little mock-up of a very popular design trend with this hip, edgy green background with type reversing out. Problem is, it's very difficult for the Medicare audience to see and read. And if this audience has difficulty reading, it actually plays into their fear regarding a lack of independence. And you do not want your materials associated with that feeling. Now, here's the same layout with more contrast. It's much easier to read now. And what it is, your audience is more willing to read materials cover to cover. Imagine how much bigger that response will be. Tip number 4, white space is your friend. We all know Medicare information is often complex, but Medicare marketers should resist the urge to pack more materials wall-to-wall with content. It's true that the Medicare audience will read as long as it doesn't look too confusing or daunting. And don't forget, most Medicare marketing has significant disclaimer content that can make materials look even more dense. The right amount of white space makes materials easier to navigate and read. They look more friendly and approachable, and ultimately make the reader less anxious. Here we mocked up a letter from a non-existent company, Star Health, and as you can see, it doesn't look intimidating. It's clean, inviting, and airy. There's a hierarchy of information on the left where the subheads guide the reader through the content. And we visually called out offers from the main body of the letter on the right. Our next example incorporates color in photography with calls to action, yet you can see there's still a lot of white space, and combining photography or images with calls to action makes them more memorable. The last example is a cover of a marketing brochure I created at Kaiser Permanente. It features some lifestyle photography and iconography with key messages that support the headline, and I felt would resonate with the audience. And yet, we still have a lot of good white space that holds it all together and enhances its readability. Now I thought I'd show you a few examples of design don'ts, just to give you an idea of what the Medicare audience can be up against. These were pulled off the internet and have been mailed out. They are not high def, but you'll get the idea. This first example placed some very nice testimonials over a very confusing background, making it extremely hard to read and compromising its impact. Based on my experience, the issue I have with this next example is the light blue type reversing out of a dark blue background. First of all, it's not a very easy font to read. It's more ornamental than I'd recommend. And with the low vision issues that this audience deals with, the blue on blue makes it even more challenging. This audience needs high contrast, simple, highly legible fonts. And if you want to highlight text, I advocate bolding content over using italics. This last example takes a nice but busy photo and tries to reverse the headline in white type. And then in an attempt to make the body copy more readable, the designer put a purple gradation in the background. A better solution, frankly, would have been not reversing type out of a busy photo. And I never recommend reversing out type for body copy. So the lesson here is, if you don't incorporate enough white space and your materials feel overwhelming or they're hard to read, your audience will file it away for good. Tip number 5, don't overcrop. Because of vision issues, Medicarians have trouble discerning tightly cropped photography. I've seen their reactions in focus groups, and it irritates the heck out of them. So make sure they can see the context in the photo. Tip number 6, chunk the copy. As this current generation ages into Medicare, they're very active with the internet. In fact, 79% regularly surf and email online. With more people getting their information on the internet, would you be surprised to hear it's even influencing how people read print and collateral? So the next time you're designing an ad or brochure, think really clean internet design. Make sure your content is easy to scan. People don't read on the internet. They scan the content. Use subheads to lead the reader through the info. Also helps with scanning. Bullet points get the info across faster, they're easier to read, and help eliminate run-on sentences. And concise content always enhances readability and comprehension. And when you write conversationally at an 8th grade reading level, it improves health literacy too. By the way, these are key points for direct marketing as well. Tip number 7, boomers want information, not marketing. Don't waste this audience's time with fluff. They're a skeptical crowd. Instead, it's all about authenticity and demonstrating that you understand what they want to know. So make sure the information is genuinely helpful and not simply a prod to sign up now. Tip number 8, focus on what's in it for them. Your communication should revolve around how your plan benefits your audience from their point of view. It's not about what you want to tell them or how great your company or plan is. Tip number 9, don't be pushy. Here we have a juxtaposition of pushy calls to action versus beneficial information. Before your audience enrolls, they need to understand and feel comfortable with what you're offering. Copy that is pushy needs to come after copy that provides benefits and helps them make a decision. Otherwise, you're really putting the cart before the workhorse. Tip number 10, infographics boost retention. Infographics are a wonderful way to quickly convey information with great retention because people retain 80% of what they see versus 20% of what they read. Visuals are processed by long-term memory. Text is short-term memory. Infographics are 30 times more likely to be read than just plain text because they're so engaging. And when they're fun and engaging, infographics go viral very easily, which maximizes your marketing budget. In conclusion, here are some key takeaways. Imagine boomers as they see themselves 10 to 15 years younger. You want to be using bright, vivid colors and high contrast. Definitely use more white space. Create easy-to-read and understand materials. Provide information, not cliche marketing. Tell them what they want to know, not what you want to say. Don't be pushy, and be authentic and genuine. Materials that capture all of this will be read more thoroughly and give your health plan the best shot at being selected. Now, that's it for the presentation. Scott and I will be happy to take any questions you might have now. Thank you so much for listening. We do have a couple questions. One is, which is easier for this audience to read, serif or sans serif fonts? Well, the popular belief was that serif fonts were easier to read, especially in print. But there's no research that's really borne that out. What's more, websites primarily use Verdana and Arial, which are both sans serifs. And as you saw, the internet is very much influencing print and direct marketing now. So I personally prefer the sans serif fonts. It's what we used at Kaiser. It's really an issue of the weight of the font for me. For this audience, having light, thin fonts is very difficult for this audience to read. So I suggest using regular and medium weight fonts primarily. And then another question is, how can I make sure my company's color palette can be seen by boomers? You can Google ADA color contrast compliance, and that's got some good information about level 2, level 3 color compliance. The ADA recommends level 3. And then how can I make sure our content is at an 8th grade reading level? There are actually several literacy softwares out there that you can license and upload to your company's computers that will evaluate content and reading level, even flagging problematic words. Oh, and another question is, how important is it to customize the message for different target segments, i.e. Hispanic? I think it's very important, especially for the Hispanic audience. And Scott, what do you think?
So, yeah, I definitely think it's important to segment for different audiences. Specifically, for Medicarians, there are two distinct audiences. We have the silent generation, sometimes known as the greatest generation. And then, of course, we have the boomers that are coming into market. And boomers can, in turn, also be segmented into leading-edge boomers, which are the boomers aging in right now, and the trailing-edge boomers, which will be the boomers that are going to be aging into the market later. So I think it's important to segment and message accordingly to each segment, but I think it's also important to test that messaging to each segment to see if you're moving the needle or not, and then proceed that way.
Right. The next question is Medicarians a new term to use? And that's, honestly, that's a term that I created when I was working at Kaiser because I didn't want to say seniors, and I just thought it was a fun way to refer to them. Any other questions? Well, we're going to be sending out a link to webinar participants so that you can access the recorded presentation. And thank you for joining us today.